Hi, this is Dr. Doreen Downing. I'm host of the Mindset Social Author Series, and today I get to interview a lovely woman who is here today to talk about her book, Mindful Living in a Changing World. And we're going to open up the conversation today. First, I'll introduce. I've got to make sure I get your name correct.
You can just say Lynn Brown, but Borenius is my middle name. So, and that's
Okay.
that's my mother's maiden name. So it's the
Uh-huh. Berenice. I didn't quite know how to pronounce it, but Lynn Berenice
nobody
Brown.
does.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you for helping me out there. But Lynn, this is what's so exciting is that you are somebody who's written this book about mindful living, but it comes from your own your own experience, something you had to discover and adjust to based on what I understand about already about your health, about what
Right.
happened to you. So we'll definitely start there. But you're somebody who is what, a coach, somebody who helps other people find who they are in such a way that they live more mindfully and empowered and growing in such a way that there's more possibility for them is what I'm discovering about you as I read more. Counselor, coach, educator is what
Yes.
working with people who are interested in, and I like this phrase, empowered living and inner peace, because that feels like both at the same time, that there's something about what's inside of us that settles us in order to be more powerful, empowered in our living, which is more of an outward kind of expression, I guess.
Right, right. I think I always am trying to help people remember that they're empowered because children come into this world feeling naturally empowered. And so I think we, through society and all the stuff that happens to us and wanting to fit in and all these kinds of things, people forget that they're empowered. And so my desire, first and foremost, is to help people remember that they're empowered. And once they remember they're empowered, they have the ability to have inner peace because
Uh-huh.
they realize that they cannot control the situation. They can choose the story that they tell about whatever is happening in their lives at the moment. And recognizing that allows them to literally and figuratively exhale.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Those that's why those two, in my opinion, go together, empowered living and inner peace.
Yes, thank you for the explanation. I felt it, and I'm glad you expanded on it. So, the book, A Mindful Living, is something that I feel like I've read it, and it just feels like every single paragraph has something to offer me, to teach me about how to keep coming back to see that my life is in my own hands. I get to create it, and that anything that I'm experiencing is something that I could be learning from, growing from. So
Yes.
that to me feels like part of the essence, at least what I'm getting from the book. However, where I want to start today is with your own story because it seems like the book is out of what happened to you early on and what you had to face and therefore change your whole life as you've been spending it 50 plus years since whatever happened. So tell us what where this comes from.
Okay, well, when I was 20, I was diagnosed with having MS. I don't have MS, but as the saying goes, I was diagnosed before technology.
Uh-huh.
No, because I was diagnosed when I was 20 years old and I'm 74, so it was a long time ago. However, once I was diagnosed, I kept having people talk to me about how well I was handling it. I guess I have to go back to when I was told. um, I'd been in the hospital, I don't know, twice for a week at least at a time, got out, I had an appointment with the doctor. I was by myself, and he told me that I had MS, and I was perfectly okay with that because I'd already been dealing with it. All you're doing is putting a name to it. That's all. And I didn't think too much about it. I went home and I called my parents, who apparently immediately called the doctor and said, we need to come in. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because the doctor said to my parents, I know she's highly intelligent and I know she understood what I was telling her, but she did not get upset. She was totally calm about it. And my dad, who was relating the story to me, said, I just told him, yeah, she's always been that way. So apparently, I'd always sort of been, now using the terminology I have now, Buddhist about it. I did not know that. So at 20, I just handled it. And people in my life were, because they cared about me, were upset, whatever. And so at 25, 24, 25, I decided I wanted to write down my thoughts on how I lived. So I wrote this 40-page pamphlet, which I called a book at the time, called Guidebook to Happiness. And that got me, I started to let people, television, I did a lot of TV and radio and public speaking in my 20s. So I got sort of spread the word about it. And then my husband, I was married to at the time, died, remarried, had a family. So I was kind of quieter. But then I started to, I guess, move more toward wanting to write. And I was still doing public speaking. I did the Victim, Survivor, Thriver talk that's in the book and whatever. And then 8 years ago, I stumbled across Professor Robert Wright at Princeton. I took an archived course via Coursera called Buddhism and Modern Psychology. And it was at that point, I don't know why I took it, I just decided, well, because I always like learning. And so I took that course, and the more I got into it, it's like, oh my goodness, I've been functioning as a Buddhist my whole life. I just didn't know I was. So apparently, this is who I've been all along. And the stuff in Guidebook to Happiness, I look back and it's like, well, that's just basic Buddhism. And now I've just really expanded on that. So I wrote Living Mindfully in a Changing World because I wanted to compile everything that I talked to clients about, everything I've taught, everything I've shared in one place. It was sort of like a culmination of my work. So I don't have MS. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I have POTS, which is a form of dysautonomia, and mast cell activation syndrome. So I finally found out my granddaughter's 10. And when my daughter was pregnant, a physical therapist told her that's what she had. And it was only then, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, that I found out what I actually have. So that has really helped because now I know better how to help myself. Because at this point, if I need to stand up or walk for any time or distance, I do use a chair because with the POTS, I faint if I stand up for too long. So my disability has, I'm going to say worsened because I don't really like that term, but it affected my life more as time goes on. But that's okay. It's just I accept it and I adapt and I have a wonderful life.
Yes. Well, my understanding was that there was some kind of, uh, I don't know, diagnosis, and then you were told that you needed to be having a life that didn't have stress. And
Yes,
that,
when I was 20, the thing that doctor told me with the room when he diagnosed me, he said, you cannot have stress.
yes, yes.
I was like, well, I'm 20, was just told I have an incurable illness. Okie dokie, not a problem. I won't have stress. And it was at that point that I think I began sort of organizing my thoughts.
Yes.
And I recognized for a first 6 months or a year, I noticed that I had problems if I got upset. And it was like, oh, that makes sense. So at 20, I'm sure before I turned 21, I figured out that expectations were the problem. And so for the last 50 years, 50 plus years, I've talked to people about expectations, that having expectations, like I have a book of affirmations, and that some of those that's in the book, that's or my affirmations in there, and then I have even some more affirmations. But I used to talk about stress is a discrepancy between expectation and reality.
Okay, let me just for listeners be able to highlight that
Yes.
stress is the difference
The discrepancy, yep.
between expectations and reality. And then, so the way that we view something, this is what I've read in your book, is the way that we view something is the way we think reality is.
Yes. Perfectly said.
However,
Yes. But, comma,
yeah, yes.
but that is, and therefore we have a choice. I always tell people there's no reality, just the stories we tell.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if we keep having expectations, we're assuming that there are no other factors at play for what we want, which of course is ridiculousness because we have very little control over anything. And so it's incredibly important to remember to not have expectations. We can have desires. I have another affirmation that said, everything and everyone in my life is written in pencil.
Oh, you mean, well, that's the Buddhist concept of impermanence.
Bingo. See, I didn't know that. Oh,
Yes.
that a long time ago. I did not know that. Again, it's all Buddhism, and I had no clue that it was Buddhism. I've never
Uh-huh.
studied Buddhism. Okay. So yes, so when my husband, not my daughter's father, but when my husband I was married to in my 20s, when he died, I'm glad he didn't in pencil, because otherwise I wouldn't have gone on and remarried and had, my own children. I had stepkids when I was 23. I had two teenagers that were my stepkids, and it worked out well. But the point being that I think it's so important that we remember that everything and everyone needs to be written in pencil, and people get uncomfortable with that.
Well, one of the things that you talk about is uncertainty, and that next, whatever is next, rather than being hardened in stone or ink, let's say, that that's the way it is and you're attached to the way it is. If it's in pencil, it feels like, oh, we can uh, erase it and recreate it. And so this whole idea that pops out from your book is about uncertainty. It's
Mhm.
almost like easygoing in the not knowing or something.
Yes, it's being comfortable. One thing that I talk to a lot of clients and students, if you want to call them that, is that be unattached to outcome,
Uh-huh.
that you do what you can do. You do what you can do about a situation, but being unattached to outcome allows you to be comfortable with uncertainty, to not have expectations, to realize everything's in pencil. And so therefore, you don't have to be attached to the outcome. You can then, and that's all remembering you're empowered. So you do these things. You remember you're able to do these things.
Yes.
Then you can have this inner peace that to me is so vital for living life fully.
All right, living life fully. I I know that every sentence in your book is about that kind of guidance, and uh, with with this idea that we live in a world and we have choice and we could create it, and continuously, almost moment by moment, is what you're saying, right? You just pointed
Yes.
like, yep. Yes, like, yeah, you got it, Doreen. Yeah, well, I'm very, very inspired by what just rolls off of you naturally and onto the page. It's easy to read. What would you say would be, because there's so much, there's just, we could spend all day and I could do these interviews over and over and over to get all the all the lovely juicy um, wisdom that flows out of your pages. But what would you say if you're telling people what they could get out of this book? What, like to,
I think what's most important to me in all the work that I do, including the book, because it's part of who I am, is to remember that we're empowered because all poor behavior, all fear, all that is not love, because there's only love and fear. So all that's not loved comes from my feeling from forgetting that we're empowered because we're born that way. Children are born feeling that they can make change, that they can make happen. I mean, that's why you have the terrible twos, because all of a sudden a child hears this weird sound, no, no, and they don't have any idea what that means. But when they hear no, they're not getting what they want, okay? And their whole life, they've gotten what they want. In utero, they ate when they wanted to. They got what they felt powerful. And a little kid feels that they are have powerful. And unfortunately, when we raise children, it's not easy to raise children and have them still remember that they're empowered while we
Mhm.
get them to recognize they're not the center of the universe and that they can't
Yeah.
always get their way. But to me, just remembering that you're empowered, that you create your reality. You can have three people look at the same experience or have the same thing happen, and they have three different stories.
Yes.
And
Uh-huh.
so I just want people to remember that they can choose the story. And my clients are always happily amazed when I help them change their story. And then they feel so much better. Their situation hasn't changed, but they've found a way to change the story so they can either change what's happening or change how they view it as an opportunity. Oh, it's another opportunity to rebuild or to tell a new story or to start again. To
Yes.
me, that's the most important thing. And I'm
Uh-huh.
always talking to clients in some form or another about remembering that they're empowered.
Right. That feels like the circumstances don't determine who you are or what your life is about. It's the way you put the pieces together. And there was you quoted somebody, and I don't remember the name, but the phrase was a kaleidoscope. It's like life is a kaleidoscope.
Right. Right. And you can turn it, you see different things, and you can keep changing it until it matches. And I don't even say what you want,
Uh-huh.
because what we in our little minds want is so often so much less than what can happen.
Then what's
So,
possible? Yeah.
yes, so to me,
Uh-huh.
it's to view every moment of every day as an opportunity. But we can only do that if we're quiet inside, if we have that peace. If you're
Yeah.
yelling and trying to form the world to make what you and your little mind think it's supposed to be, you miss all sorts of opportunities that are around. So that's why being unattached to outcome is important. You do what you can do and go, huh, that whenever anything goes against my little plan, the first thing I say, this is the truth. First thing I say is, oh, I wonder what opportunity this is offering me.
Oh, that this is important because this can apply to any situation that even the most negative situation, there's something, if you have this attitude or this curiosity that you're talking about, what can I learn out of this? Even,
What is this situation? What can I learn
yes.
from this? What different turn can I take? I
Yes.
mean, I always tell people, if my husband hadn't died, I wouldn't have the life I have. I wouldn't have had my daughter. I wouldn't have maybe even had the career that I have.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
loved him very much,
There's
but
always something we can make that has meaning for us, is what I would
there's a
say.
gift.
Ooh.
What is the gift in this situation? I always tell my clients, look for the gift. There's that Reader's Digest story from the 40s about the little boy that only got a pile of, I'll say, poop, because it's G-rated, poop as a gift. And he was very happy, and his parents, I don't, there's more to the story, obviously, I don't remember, and it doesn't matter. The point is that his parents said, all you have is poop. How can you be so happy? If there's poop, there's got to be a pony somewhere.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Remember
Yeah.
that? That's from
Yeah.
the 40s.
Yeah.
Well, I always tell my clients, what is the pony? And my clients end up saying to me, I was looking for the pony. I was looking for the pony. And then they tell other people, well, you got to look for the pony. So, I mean, I didn't start that. It was, Reader's Digest in the 40s, started, that was now almost 100 years ago. But the point being that what is the gift?
Yeah. And that reminds me of the story about the golden Buddha that was covered in cement because the invaders were going to come and, I guess take all the riches, and instead they didn't find the Buddha until years later when they moved it, and then it started cracking, I guess, in the moving, and there it was inside was the golden Buddha. And so that's what I'm thinking about today with you, is that inside of us is all this richness, this empowerment. We were born that way. And then we have all this crusting that goes on. And the remembering is the way I'm bringing it all together. Well, we're coming to the end, and I know that there's so much more gold in the book. So, uh,
Thank you so much. I appreciate
yes.
that.
Yeah, it'll be in the show notes, and people can find where to get you, and
Awesome.
also where to get the book. So thank you very much. One last, whatever, listen into this now moment and see what wants to come to end our time together.
My affirmation that has taken me through so much in my life that encapsulates our whole conversation. At this moment, all is as it needs to be.